right, today we have Coach Bryce Tesdahl, Minnetonka High School, with us today. Bryce, how are you doing?
Good, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. Welcome to the Girl Dad crew. I think it was a few months ago, right? You had a baby girl, and you're joining the squad.
Yeah, man. It's been a crazy experience, and especially with being able to stay at home now and teach a little bit from home, but also be a dad at home on a daily basis and watch your daughter grow up. It's a pretty special deal.
Yeah, that's been the nice part of the distance learning stuff. I know on my end, being able to be home with our two kids throughout the day, which it gets a little bit of a handful at times too, and you got to have that Zoom meeting with your kids, whatever. But it's a nice treat. So let's talk background a little bit. High school coaches don't have a Wikipedia page. Most of them at least don't. So give us a little background about where you've been, where you've coached, where you played, all those sorts of things.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it doesn't take up the 40 minutes because there's been a lot of changes. But no, started in obviously in the Brainerd Lakes area, close to you, and Crosby Ironton. Was fortunate to grow up playing for my dad, and I think that was the best thing for me, even though I didn't like it on a daily basis. And he taught me a lot of things discipline-wise, and obviously I had the opportunity to go to mom and dad's practices. Mom, growing up, was the head high school coach for the girls team, and dad was a longtime assistant, still is, at Crosby. But ultimately it came down to Dave Galovich and making the impact he did at the youth and high school level, and still does. Close to 40 years in the profession, he's done a heck of a job of building a winner at Crosby Ironton, and getting kids interested from a young age. And obviously it's a lot easier at a smaller school, but you still have to put the youth program at the forefront with your high school program. And he's done a great job of implementing things they do at the high school level at the youth level. And that's a big thing I've taken away from just being in his program, is just, what he does with the youth programs. Even at a small school, you can replicate that in some sense at bigger schools. And that's what I've tried to do at every place I've been so far. But Hall of Fame coach. He's a guy that, no matter if the team that they play on Tuesday or Fridays 1-26, he's going to go scout them for the whole game. And that's one thing that I got to learn and travel with the team at a young age, whether if it was for away games or go on a scouting trip with my dad and Coach Galovich. And it was a lot of things that you don't think about as a player. I got to witness firsthand, being kind of as a passenger seat to those two on a daily basis, and just the work ethic and discipline. And whether if it's a weekend and they're watching film and breaking things down, and it was pretty cool because a lot of small towns, they don't get that from their high school coach. And I had a dedicated coach that wanted to win, but also wanted to develop relationships with the youth in high school. So I thought that was a pretty neat experience growing up. And obviously it helps when you win, and he's won a lot of games. And Crosby's been to multiple state tournaments and played in a lot of big section games. Not only did I get to view those as a fan, but I also got to play in those, and just a really all-around great experience that really led into my college career at Bemidji State. And obviously when you go from being a really good high school player and you go into college, you think things are just going to turn over real quick and I'm going to be the man and I'm going to go back to averaging a triple-double, and all of a sudden you just take a step back and realize how good the NSIC is and the caliber of athletes. And we were just talking about that off the mic a little bit, of how good Division III, Division II basketball is in the state of Minnesota with Minnesota kids. And it's only gotten better since when I played 10 years ago, which seems like 30 now. But had the opportunity to be recruited by Jeremy Tiers and Coach Bowen up there, and really just gave me an opportunity. I had multiple opportunities at the Division III and Division II level, and had a couple preferred walk-on spots at Division I level, but I wanted to play, and they provided me. I think we went 32-1 and lost in the state championship game my senior year, and I was looking at a team that won 5 games going into Bemidji State, and I wanted a challenge. I wanted also an opportunity to play right away, and they provided me that. And I started every game but 2 in my college career. Thank the Lord I was healthy during those 4 years and being able to play. But I grew a lot, and you see, the thing that bugs me, and, I was part of that process, is just the transferring, whether if it's high school, college, NBA teams. I mean, it's everywhere. It's prevalent with even our youth teams. I mean, people come and go as they please. And I had that feeling my first year of college. Should I, just transfer and look for a better situation and go to Stevens Point where they just won a national title and I could have been a part of that team, or should I stick it out and try to see it through? And that's what I decided to do. And obviously I had good mentoring along the way with my family tree and background, but stuck it out. And we went from 6 wins my freshman year to 22 wins and a best team ever in Bemidji State history. And to see that through was really, really cool on my end as a player, and obviously led to the transition to Minnesota Duluth as a graduate assistant, and learned a lot from whether if it was coaching or academic monitoring or getting kids out of bed to go out of class, and traveling the same road trips on that same bus, not as a player anymore, but as a coach. And just learned a lot from Coach Bowen, and just seeing him on a different platform on a daily basis in the office and within coaching meetings. I really learned a lot from him, and over the 7 years that I was with him as a player and coach. And, when I was at the college level, I had multiple opportunities. I had an opportunity to stay as a top assistant at the Minnesota Duluth and turned that down. I had multiple opportunities to go to other colleges and be a college coach and continue that career. But something was really missing in my life, is just being a head coach. I always wanted to be one. My family members are. At the high school level and college level. And the easiest way and probably the quickest way to do that was high school. And, I was fortunate to have New Prague High School take a shot at me at the ripe age of 24. And it was funny. I'll never forget. We started 1-3 and we were going over to Shakopee. And, our guys were hyped up and they beat them in the summer. And I was just telling them, hey, man, summer basketball, it really doesn't matter. We go over there and we lose by 40. And we got 40-pieced, and I didn't play one starter the whole second half. And I heard every parent behind me saying, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He's too young, blah, blah, blah. And started 1-3. And, you kind of take a step back and think about, damn, do I really not know what the hell I'm doing? And it's the stuff that, that we're doing in practice not work, and you start second guessing yourself a little bit. But I stayed true to what we were doing. We just worked a little bit harder, got to know each other a little bit more, and we finished the season 20-8. So, it was just, we took a big step and upset Chaska. I think was number 6 in the state at the time at home. And you just kind of fall in love with the process. And I had great kids at New Prague, great kids, great families, won 2 conference titles there, and just an awesome experience, which led to the opportunity to be at Eastridge. And obviously that lasted 2 years as well, but a great 2 years, another opportunity to really take a step within my coaching career of just the athletes that I coached, and made the state tournament there and did great things, best team in school history, and everybody knows how that turned out. And then obviously now here at Minnetonka, and first losing season. Now I can't coach. I'm 12-15 this year, and I just lost all the things that I did the past 4 years that didn't lead to success here. But no, I love it here, coaching and teaching, the atmosphere, family loves it here, and we're looking forward to building it, even though it's going to take time.
A couple interesting things from your background that I took away. I think that, and I don't mean to throw any shade at anyone specifically, but you had a good point about finding a place where you can play. And just, I've had kids get recruited. I've coached against guys that are scholarship level kids. I think so many kids want that label. If they're probably a really good D3 player, they want that Division II offer. If they're a good Division II player, they want to say they're a Division I player. And you look at a guy like Matt Willard at Buffalo. He put 54 up on Hopkins. He probably could have went to a handful of small Division I schools and grinded it out, but he's going to St. Cloud State, where he can go have a chance to play for 4 years. And I think in our culture, the social media culture, not trying to seem like that 31-year-old going on 70 here, I think a lot of kids try to get a little bit too wrapped up in that label about where they're playing at the next level, instead of just finding a home like you did. You were there 6 wins your first year. You guys won 122 or whatever your senior year at Bemidji State, and you were invested in that success, and you got to see that grow. Talk about a couple of things that you mentioned with Galovich, the youth program stuff. What about with Coach Bowen? Down to Valparaiso as an assistant coach. What are some things that you learned from him that you apply to your coaching today?
Yeah, just I think developing relationships with the student athlete, not only on the court and off the court. Coach Galovich did a great job of that, but obviously within college, you see your coaches a lot more, whether if it's in between classes and you go to the office and watch some film or just chat. You just have a lot more free time, and he utilized that free time within the day to really connect with his student athletes. And I try to still do that. Obviously, as a high school coach, I think it pays big dividends when you can be actually in the school on a daily basis. I would never take a job where I couldn't be in the high school on a daily basis. So just finding times to connect with kids, not only basketball stuff, but out of season as well, checking in with their other sports. And he really just found interest in us as a student, as an athlete, and just as a person. So I learned a lot from that piece. And we had a relationship. We had a relationship as a player coach. And we also had times where it wasn't in season and we could go to the lake and hang out and grill and go jet skiing. And he would, do it up big, and it was fun. But we also knew when it was time to turn on the switch and work hard and not BS. And so I think, from that, I think that really started the foundation of the relationship and just trust and respect that we had for him. But also within him, I learned a lot offensively for him. If you watch Valpo at all during their run in the tournament, Missouri Valley tournament, I mean, that's all Bowen's offense, motion style offense, and just how you break that down and how you teach kids to play without the basketball. I have no worries about what kids can do with the basketball in their hands. They work on that all the time, but can they read a down screen? Can they actually set a back screen with a good angle and screen a body and not screen air? And just how you break that down on a daily basis within your practice with small sided games, and just being able to teach that takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time. And that's one thing that I've tried to do within our teams and really got it done at Eastridge. Obviously it helps when you have 3 Division I players out there, but just teaching kids how to play without the ball and not run into it like it's a 3rd grade soccer game, like I always say, and just space off the ball, sprint off the floor. And I learned a lot from him within the offensive piece that he did, not only with us at Bemidji, but then transition into UMD as a coach as well.
What are some of the big ideas when you're teaching off-ball movement? What are you telling your kids? You come to Minnetonka, it's day one, summer workout. You're obviously doing something motion or small-sided related. What are your teaching points?
Slow and right is better than fast and wrong. That's the biggest thing. You got a new coach coming in, you got a new offense, you got a new style, you got new vocab, and all that stuff is great. But a lot of times you just need to slow the hell down. And when you figure out when slow is right and when fast is right, I think kids start to get it. But you go through those first 2 weeks of summer workouts and everybody's just trying to go as hard as they can and play as fast as they can, which is great. I love the effort, love the energy, and love the enthusiasm. But I always tell kids slow and right is better than fast and wrong. And it's just taking baby steps within that process. And the biggest thing that I try to teach is just spacing. We get too many kids in the paint, or, you got 2 kids standing right next to each other. And when a kid's driving, or if a kid runs right into a drive and he brings his defender in there, and now there's a secondary guy there, being able to take a charge or a double team. And just, that's the biggest thing I try to teach, just spacing right away. And also just being able to sprint the floor. And I know you guys do a great job of that up there. And I listened last week with Johnny Carrier, and hopefully I can live up to his expectation with being the first guest on here. I love me some Johnny C. But, it's there's so many things that you can focus on, but I just try to keep it simple and teach kids how to play the game the right way, in my opinion, and with the ball and without the ball especially.
Where we've gotten into a little bit of trouble, we run some of that, mostly spread, high ball screen type stuff, and we're telling our kids more to space than to cut. We didn't shoot as well from 3 this past year, so there were some times when we were maybe 4 for 16 to start a game from deep. It's like, we got to put some pressure on the rim with a cut. And so what do you teach your kids? Because there's always that gray area. Guys looking to attack off a ball screen, or they're attacking a closeout. What is your teaching point when you're trying to have a kid cut off the ball, so they're not, like you mentioned, bringing their guy right into help, or they're cutting into a driving lane?
Yeah, we try to run a lot of, I've kind of fallen in love with, after I got done with New Prague, I had 2 great bigs. I ran a lot of horn stuff. I did a lot of just kind of sets where we put our guys in strength positions, and I had the right roster for it. We wanted to play through our bigs, who obviously had a great year at St. John, Zach Hansen and Lucas Walford. I wish I still had those guys on my teams, because they're 2 of the better bigs that I've had offensively, especially. But we try to run a lot of Jay Wright, 4 out, 1 in, and offensive spacing his offense. And, you watch Villanova, and maybe not this past year because they didn't have as much talent as they've had in the past, but being able to know when to basket cut and know when to stand. I mean, it's okay to just stand every once in a while within our offense. And that's that's the biggest thing I have with our guards is just like, you don't need to move all the time. Like you make a pass and you just want to, or you take 5 dribbles and you pass and then you just cut right into the ball, or you cut somewhere else, and just being able to play slower in a sense without the ball and being able to read the defense a little bit. But we try to teach our kids, simple cuts of just know when to basket cut, know when just stand, and know when to cut away or screen away. And that probably took us until, January, late January, early February this year, where we had some ball movement, knew when to push, knew when to just reverse the ball, knew when to get a post touch and play through Cam Steele, who's one of the better offensive players I've had offensively. But a lot of offense is great the first 5 seconds, and then the next 5 seconds, two guys are cutting into each other. Some guy is dribbling right into the guy that's supposed to cut. I mean, it's just, so it takes a long time. And that's what scares me about this June and July. If we don't get it throughout the summer, not being able to, we graduated 5 kids that played for us, and we have a couple that will be back that played varsity minutes, but sophomore to JV is a whole different level. JV to varsity is a whole different level. And if we don't have those 2 months to teach, when there's not game preparation, pressure, it's just, so that's, it hurts the kids. It hurts us as coaches and hurts us in programs. And I know everybody's in the same boat, but man, I just love June and July, and that's where you can get a lot of that stuff taken care of.
You're obviously a good Twitter follower. I've talked a lot about, I've tried to steal a lot of the stuff that you've done at your various stops, but I feel like there are coaches out there who don't utilize the summer window as well as other guys like yourself, who's going to be in the gym, a couple hours a day. I know you're not in there putting 10-hour days in with your varsity kids, but you're in there probably 90 minutes, 2 hours, a couple times a week, get a couple tournaments here or there, if it's breakdown, if it's go for team camp, whatever the case may be. But it's having that time where you can build those relationships with the kids like you talked about, but also get your system in. Because I think that the coaches who are willing to put the time in, their teams usually have success over the course of, might not be year 1, year 2, but it's going to kind of hurt those coaches who are willing to put the time in. It's going to equal the playing field a little bit, which it is what it is. But obviously, we like to get in the gym a lot. I know your team's always get in the gym a lot, and you guys spend a lot of time. So it'll be unfortunate if we don't have that summertime. One thing on cutting that we've used, and you can write this down if you want, we call it nervous cutting, where kid doesn't know what to do, so they just kind of just cut just because they're nervous and they want to act like they're not standing there. And we find that with a lot of, especially in the summer tournaments or early in the season, with guys who are, like you said, trying to make that jump from JV to varsity. It's like, well, I'm just going to cut because I don't want to be caught standing, or my parents are yelling, move, move from the bleachers. And we call it nervous cutting. And I feel like that a lot of kids get on the big stage and like, oh crap, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to cut. Let's expand off a little bit. Let's talk about your secondary action. Don't need to reveal all the secrets. I know Coach Ortman's probably going to listen here and write some scouting reports down. And so, but just kind of what are you looking to do secondary to get into your motion stuff?
Yeah, we try to push the ball, and obviously, big thing that we try to do, Coach Bowen always wanted it as well, and kind of learned it from him. And we want a 3 right away, or we want a layup or a dunk. If we don't get that, we want to be able to reverse the ball to make the defense change courts and have them talking. But we really try to push I don't care if it's right or left side, or if we got a fast break, if it's 5-on-5 primary fast break, we want to be able to get a 3, corner 3, where we can get a middle drive to a push corner 3, or we want to be able to attack and create a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2 situation. But for us, we're trying to get a really good look in the first 10 seconds, or we're trying to run offense that next 20 seconds and play through, for this year, play through Cam Steele and get him at least 1 touch, whether if it's, off a down screen or off post touch. And, we chart paint touches and post touches. And the biggest thing, and I was listening to you guys last week within this podcast, is just, we don't want to run offense for 35 seconds and everything's great and turn the damn ball over. That pisses coaches off more than anything when you turn it over because you don't get a shot. So we're not, I would love a shot clock, and most people would, but, I think the game is more clean and fluid that way, but that's not my decision. But, I want to run, if we can't have anything in the first 10 seconds, I want to run something within the next 15, because then we can get a really good look. And if we set a couple of screens, and I kind of took a step back, especially my last year at Eastridge, is just, giving players away. When you first get a job, high school job, you want to run everything and you want to be in control and you want to be, Coach K out there coaching your guys up and yelling and screaming and telling them to settle down and run a sets. And we were good at that at New Prague. Kids listened and they were well trained. They were smart. They were good, and we worked. And then I got to Eastridge, and I got 3 Division I guys rolling around. It's just like, no, they need to go. They need to go. They need to figure it out, and they need to play fast, and they'll play out. The biggest thing is just teaching those guys how to play off each other, and sharing the ball. And once they got that, it looked really damn good. It was fun watching. And at Eastridge, especially that last year, I mean, shoot. I wouldn't call timeouts, or if the other coach called a timeout, we tried to drop a lob alley-oop to Kendall Brown or Ben Carlson or Courtney Brown. I mean, that was the extent of our stuff. So just being able to teach kids how to play in space and playing off the ball is the biggest thing. And that doesn't really happen within that first 5 to 10. It's going to happen in that next 10 to 15 where, defense gets set. They take away the driving lanes, or they take away a passing lane, and they're, set on that midline, or they're up in the passing lane, or they're in the gap and you can't do much. So we try to really work on at least 1 to 2 reversals, and then really get into some, motion stuff where we create a bad closeout, and we can get a drive to a kick and maybe to another kick. But threes and layups within that first 10 seconds is what we're looking for. And if you don't get that, we're trying to score in that next 10 to 15.
You kind of hit on the you can fall victim of fast draw, right? There's so much stuff on fast draw. There's so much stuff on Twitter. You can find 10,000 plays that would probably work with your team if you put them in. But at the end of the day, it's about figuring out what 2 or 3 things we want to go do, but letting kids play. Let's go a little bit now backwards too now we're in transition. So do you have set roles, lanes, or do you kind of just get in and go?
We get in and go. I want our 4 or 5, who's ever the first guy down the floor, to rim run, just because I think it's important to, have somebody guard the rim on the defensive end. But, 1, 2, or 3, our guards are really interchangeable, in my opinion. Obviously, I don't want my 6'8" kid bringing it up if he's not a good ball handler in a lot of situations. But we try to get a 4 or 5 sprinting to the rim, and then we try to get, 1, 2, or 3 who doesn't have the ball, 2 of them that don't have the ball, to get to those corners and really space and that guy, try to push and create a driving kick situation. And obviously, we kind of specified based on personnel every year of what they can and can't do, and try to play to their strengths and stay away from their weaknesses. But again, that's just teaching kids how to play and developing fundamentals and developing their all-around games. Because, as college coaches will tell you, they need their 4s and 5s to step out and shoot, and they need a lot of these 2s and 3s to get into the post and post up if there's a mismatch. So developing their all-around game is the one thing that we try to do and really try to teach and really invert. It's one thing Bowen always did, and that was what I did as a player. Is I was a 6'3", 210, probably 10 pounds overweight guard at the college level, and I didn't had the opportunity to I was guarding a lot of 3s and 4s. That's just my body type. But a lot of 5'10" point guards are trying to guard me on the other end, where you can invert it, set a back screen for me, and I get in the post and be able to play off that way. So I mean, it all depends on who you are and what your style is and your philosophy is and what team you have. But I think there's a lot of great things. And shoot, if you scroll through your Twitter page, you can find 85 sets in about 3 minutes.
Yeah, it can really be suffocating. So you mentioned at New Prague, you ran a lot of horn stuff. Eastridge, you had the 3 scholarship Division I kids. And I really liked your shooters you had around those guys. And we got to see you a couple times at the state tournament. I know you played after us in the 3rd place game, and then we saw your semifinal game too. Really liked the shooters you had around those 3 as well. Those guys did a lot of nice things for you. But what are you looking for sets wise versus just running motion stuff? I mean, is it 3 sets? Do you have your 5 go-tos?
Yeah.
What in a perfect world, what are you looking to do?
Yeah, the max that I usually try to have is 10 throughout the year. We start with 2 or 3, and then we try to build up to 12 at the max. Like at this, the final game this year, we had probably 3 or 4 sets just for Cam Steele to get him the ball. When we, if it was 15, 20 seconds in a possession and we haven't gotten anything, or if we playing Dawson Garcia and we really wanted to back screen him, which obviously didn't work. But it's just, we try to have 10 to 12 things that we can go to at the end of the year, but we piece them in instrument. It's not like I put 12 plays in November and we're going to run those, just try to add a couple. And if you see something that I see something within a scout or a team that we're playing, maybe we add 1 play. on a given practice day that we're going to use. But I try to put our 2 to 3. If we're going to call a set, I want 2 to 3 best players to touch it. That's how I've always been. And when I was at Eastridge, we had sets for that we could get Kendall a touch or Courtney a touch or Ben a touch. If we had, Patrick Lynott, who was one of the better 3-pointer shooters I've ever coached at Eastridge, we always had a play for him at the beginning of the second half. So just always try to have a play for certain situations, but also actual players because they can score the ball.
You've been at 3 high school programs. You've been able to take them over and have pretty much instant success. You mentioned 20 wins with New Prague. Obviously did big things at Eastridge. And then this past year, maybe the wins and loss didn't necessarily show the success you guys had at Minnetonka, but improved conference and improved section record from the year prior that you took over. But talk about what you're looking to do those first 30 days that you take over a program.
Yeah, the biggest thing is just developing relationships with kids and families in the youth program. And, as you talked about last week, it's developing those relationships, but also having a straight line where kids know not to cross and parents know not to cross. And I try to set out expectations right away and develop consistent communication and expectation, not only with our student athletes, but our families. And obviously I've had the opportunity, a supportive administration is big too. If you don't have that at your high school and they don't get sports or value sports, it can be a nightmare. And I know people at the high school level and college level are in that situation, and it's not fun to go to work. And it's just an opportunity within those first 30 days you want to implement some offense and defensive stuff, but getting to know your kids and getting to know that obviously that you're here to win, but also develop kids in the classroom community competition. We talk about that all the time within our program. But I think it's one of the hardest things in high school basketball is your staff. I mean, it's not like we're paying them $240,000 and they get a cell phone and they get a vehicle and we're taking care of food on a daily basis. It's not like they're coaching in the Big Ten, but can you find, and it looks like outside looking in, you got great assistants, but are your assistants bought in and want to do the same thing as you? Or are they trying to, do their own thing? And, whether if it's 9B or 7C or 4A, I mean, can you get the youth people and high school people all on the same page? And I think that's a big deal.
I've been really impressed with the cultural stuff that you've had at every stop. So what are some of your core values, or what are some of the basic expectations that you have of your student athletes?
Yeah, we want to win the classroom. We want to win in the community. We want to win in competition. That probably goes in order. If you can't win in the classroom, if you can't do the right thing in the community and serve and be a great student athlete within your own home and within the community that you live in, we want to have community supports. And I know that's at Eastridge, unless we were playing Cretin-Durham Hall or if it was the breakdown tip-off. I mean, we struggled to get 400 or 500 people in the stands my first year, and it's just like, man, who wouldn't want to come watch Kendall, Courtney, Ben? Like, it's just crazy. Your students have so many things going on, but even at Brainerd Crosby, it was a thing. If there was a game, everybody was in the damn stands. I mean, when we played Pequot, you had to get there at 3:00 to get in the game. I remember playing the section final over at Brainerd my junior year, and the place was just people were skipping school to get over and get in line. And it's just trying to build that culture, not only with your athletes, but your students, your families, your youth program. It takes a lot of time. And that's where I think maybe some coaches get burnt out because they don't have that plan of, they have the plan for the high school program, but what's your plan for the community? What's your plan for kids in academics? What's your plan for, engaging students within your program that go to school there? So it takes a lot of work. And obviously, you get 4 or 5 months a year to actually be in the spotlight within 26 games that you have. But I think we're always working, we're always preparing, at least the coaches that are trying to prepare and improve their programs are. But I think, having a plan, and our plan is to really win in those 3 areas. And when we're on the court, or when you're in the classroom, when you're in the community, have all energy, effort, and enthusiasm. You got to enjoy the process. We talk about the process a lot. And, one thing that I think separates our program that we try to do is, we don't skip the weight room. That's as important as, basketball stuff. We do grade checks. We try to serve in the community as much as we can. So we don't really try to skip the process. We really don't worry about the result that much, but we know that, if kids fall in love with the process, usually it loves you back. So we talk about that a lot, and some of it can be smoke and mirrors, but, the biggest thing is just working hard. I mean, that was the only way that I got to be a halfway decent student athlete is, I wasn't a 4.0 kid. I wasn't the athlete that had God-given ability where I could jump over people or shoot 60% from three. I just had to work. So I try to bring that mentality to our program.
Talk about the weight room. Talk about your guy, Coach Moon. Was at Eastridge, followed you to Minnetonka. Talking about his role in your program and how valuable he is.
Oh man, he's my right-hand man. Obviously, when I was at Bemidji State, some of the stuff was made up by Coach Bowen and his assistants until we got a actual weight trainer. And basketball coaches should be basketball coaches, and it's so. I know the weight room. I lift every day, but I also don't know how to teach form, technique, and be safe. So I knew when Coach Moon had the background that he did and approached me at Eastridge, and we came in the same time at Eastridge our first year. So it was kind of a match made in heaven, man. I got lucky. He's a great guy that not only has weight room background knowledge and does a great job in there, but connects with the kids on a different level than I do. He gets to know them different, and I think that's great. Just because he'll get information that I won't get, and he can relay it on, and he can have different conversations. But he's a beast in the weight room, man. We're so lucky to have him. I'm so glad that I got him over here with Minnetonka with me, just because it's not only does a great job with the high school kids, but the youth kids in the weight room, and builds relationships with parents, families, and it's awesome, man. It's a big part of our program, and you can ask anybody at Eastridge or now at Minnetonka. It pays dividends.
Having good assistant coaches is just, that saves you as a head coach. I've been lucky enough to have really good assistant coaches, and like you mentioned with Coach Moon, guys who are my friends, guys that we're in a text group right now. We'll text politics. We'll text about Timberwolves game, a Twins game, just having those good connections. But also, I'm sure your guys aren't afraid to tell you, hey, Bryce, why don't we try this out? Or I didn't agree with that decision. Because you got to have guys who are willing to push you and aren't just going to nod your head because they're scared you're going to rip their face off. Now, you've coached in pretty affluent communities with probably some parents who are probably pretty influential and powerful. So what are some basic expectations you set out for parents? And then, how is it coaching with parents who got a lot of say, make a lot of money, and that sort of thing? I love to hear that situation because you've been in 3 pretty affluent communities. So I'm really intrigued by that.
Yeah, man. This podcast might have to extend to about.
You say what you got to say to save your job too. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus.
No, I got some good stories. It's too bad because we get to talk about a lot of them at the Final Four when we go down there, the state tournaments, and but you try to have a basic expectation with parents. I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna do what's best for what I think basketball decision wise. I always tell parents all the time, if your kid's got a problem socially, mentally, physically, grade wise, I'll talk with you all day. But if it comes to playing time, if it comes to what we're doing X and O's, why, I don't want to hear it. I'll never forget. I had a New Prague. I had a parent situation where the family member came in and said, "Hey, I want a meeting." I'm like, "For what?" Going to our AD, I'm like, "I'm not taking any meetings about basketball stuff. Like, if it's dealing with playing time X and O, like I don't want to hear it. Like I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to coach your kid. And I also have a family at home that I want to be a dad. I want to be a husband. I also have my own life that I'd like to do. And, I believe that we do the right thing and try to get the right results. And I think a lot of high school coaches do that for pennies on the dollar when it comes to hours put in. So I try to lay out a basic expectation that, we're trying to do what's best for your kid. I will have conversations, but I don't really have time for, the basketball discussions. Obviously if it's a youth kid, you have a little bit more basketball discussions with parents and what they can be working on. And, I always try to keep our parents up to date with the weekly message and try to, put stuff out on social media. But you could have every high school coach could have a secretary to answer the phone. And obviously when you work in affluent communities, you probably have a lot more problems. But, the biggest thing that I get is just the tryout process. It's just, Well, he played AAU and he got a jersey and, he's been working out with his personal trainer. And it's just like, okay, that's great. I'm glad you're spending the money on it. To me, it's a waste of money, but, that's the biggest thing that I probably get. We don't have the way I run my program. Thankfully, we haven't had a lot of in-season issues. But it's usually tryout process where I get the most crap, and it's just like, you have to deal with it for a week. And it's just, I've recruited kids at the college level. I've watched, I've had great athletes play in my program. I've been around, my family member is made up of coaches. I pretty much grew up in the gym. I think my basketball sense is decent. But do you make maybe one or two mistakes throughout your 5 years of coaching, of cutting a kid and maybe keeping a kid? Maybe. But you just try to do what's best for your program.
So you're in charge of a giant K-12 program. I'm sure you have hundreds of kids in the youth level in Minnetonka Basketball Association. How do you manage that with the countless stakeholders and the people who, you got board members who are presidents, vice presidents, treasurers who probably have your phone number or have your ear and they have that one-on-one time or small group time in meetings? How do you kind of balance the various stakeholders you have while also trying to grow your youth program?
Yeah, it's not easy. You kind of have to walk a fine line, but I think developing those relationships and trust with those people that are in charge and have roles and make decisions and make way more money than I do on a daily basis, and run companies and do all that. But I think a lot of people, if they are in that position, can see what coaches are doing, and I try to be as active as I can within our youth program. Whether if it's attending practices, attending tournaments, providing opportunity. I think that's the best you can do as a high school coach, and developing relationships and, obviously walking a fine line within those relationships, but attending meetings and having people know in those strength positions that you care. Not only care about the high school program, but you care about the youth program. And I think it all starts with developing relationships with those youth kids, and the parents get great feedback from their kids. And whether if it's a camp setting or practice setting or game setting, I think you can do so much as a high school coach. And that's what it's all about. You want to have relationships with kids, because they're not going to be at Princeton High School or Minnetonka High School forever. But a lot of times, if you do the right thing, you get those kids back, and they still impact your program in a lot of different ways. So, you got to walk a fine line. But I really try to develop relationships and develop trust and attend meetings and, just have fun with it. And I just understand that, everything's not going to go your way or how you want it done within everything going on youth wise or high school wise. But the best thing you can do is just put your best foot forward and try to make it all work.
Yeah, I mean, you've clearly done an excellent job. I've seen the kids. I've seen the videos of kids working out. I've seen the energy. There's a really cool tweet I saw. I think the Skipper Basketball account retweeted it. Someone had a split screen of the crowd 2 years ago and then the crowd this year, and just how much that has changed. So you obviously know what you're doing on building culture, building programs, and you've had a ton of success with it. So from afar, and someone like you mentioned earlier, we go back, from our days when you're stealing the headlines of the Brainerd Dispatch from your Crosby days and fighting for Jeremy Millsop's attention. You played a little AAU together. So it's been really cool to see your growth and how you've had success everywhere along the way. Last couple things here. I'm looking for advice that you would give to younger coaches. So what are some things that you've learned over your, 6 years, 7 years head coach, couple of years in college that you wish you would have known when you took over at New Prague?
Well, I think you just got to, again, like I tell our players as coaches, we just got to slow down. I mean, there's obviously so much information that you can take from coaching clinics or the social media or any website resource fast. I mean, there's so much that you can gain, and that's great. And, I'm a big write it down, pen and paper still person, old school stuff that way. Got that from coach and my dad, and don't know how to use a cell phone or a computer back there in Crosby. But, it's just something where I think you got to slow down. I think you got to get to know your kids first. I think you have to build relationships. I think you have to see what the program, what it is and who you have, and really develop, my biggest thing is developing a defensive mindset. Defense for me comes first before offense. And if you look at our scores this year, that's probably, this guy's bullshitting, but every other year it's been about that. And it'll just take time at Minnetonka to get done, because, when you got Eden Prairie at 5 Division I scholarship guys, Division II, Division I guys out there, your defense always doesn't look good. And we didn't have that problem in the East Regions Conference. So I think just developing a mentality of what your team. I think Coach Bowen told me this is a lot of times your kids will take upon the character of yourself as a coach. So our practices, you just go through it and you can't wait for game night, or do you treat it like a game and you have effort, energy, enthusiasm, and you want that out of your kids, and that's how you're practicing. That's one thing I try to do is, we treat every day like it's a game, man. It's an opportunity. And for this coronavirus, I just feel so bad for the spring athletes because you just never know when it's going to be taken away from you. So I treat it every practice, man. I can't wait to get a practice plan going and get in the gym and create some energy. And that's one thing that, we all wish that we could have the jersey on, but that's why, we stay connected and coach. And, for first year head coaches that are taking over a job is developing relationships first, get to know your kids' families, teach a little bit of offense, teach a little bit of defense, but keep it simple. I mean, if I were to go back in New Prague and, we're first 2 weeks we're running different sets in the summer, and I just got the job May 13th, and we didn't run half the crap that I put in. So it's just like you have to slow down, you have to get to know your kids and just build fundamentals. Just make your kids better basketball players, and don't turn them into robots. And that's one thing that I really learned probably after my first year reflecting what I need to do better as a coach is just teach the kids how to play and have fun with it, enjoy the process, and get them in the weight room and do the right thing in the community. But just slow down and try to do the right thing and know that everything's not going to be picture perfect.
All right, I'll give you a couple minutes here to end on defense. All right, what are some of your non-negotiables or things that you expect or your promises that your kids have to have on the court when you're on the
first and foremost, you got to communicate. It just drives me nuts when a guy gets pinned on a down screen and you don't see it. And we watch, one of your questions on there when you send me was just film, and we try to watch film every day, and a lot of it is defensive film. It's one thing that Dave Thorson. I watch his teams play a lot, and we go over. All my teams have gone over to scrimmage De La Salle before the season starts, and you go over there and you go to the island, man. There's talking, there's stance, they're grabbing you. They know, and it's not a foul. They're just getting into your stuff, and we try to replicate that in a different colored jersey than De La Salle. But those are things that communication is the biggest thing. I think you can solve a lot of problems when communicating, but communication, stance, relaxation, you can't relax. I mean, basketball is so good in Minnesota right now at all levels. I mean, all sections, all levels. You talk about Willard. I mean, the kid, you couldn't guard him. I mean, he would come off first game we did a decent job on. Second game, he would come off a down screen or catch it, and he would just shoot an NBA three-pointer, and it's just like, damn, how do you guard that? Some things you can't guard. But we do try to take away a lot of stuff through film within individual things that teams are trying to do. But, one of my assistants brought up, hey, we're going to play zone this year. I'm like, nah, I have played zone with my teams, but I want to teach man-to-man principles within my youth high school programs, because a lot of kids play zone, and I played zone in my high school career, and we were good at it, just because we probably had better athletes and longer athletes. But when I got to college and I had to play man, shoot, I was 2 steps behind, and I didn't know how to, always jump to the ball and see the ball and sit on the midline and how to close out. I mean, we did that stuff, but we really didn't talk about it at high school. And so I think just preparing, that's one thing that a lot of college coaches that have my kids, they're prepared defensively. Offensively, kids got to continue to add stuff to their games, but a lot of that they're working on their own, and they're going to work that. I mean, kids aren't sitting in a stance right now on, I have not seen a YouTube, TikTok, or anybody closing out or sitting in a stance, or Pat Freeman, Midwest basketball training, or Reed Ossie. I want to see some slides, man. I want to see some closeouts. Let's get these guys defending in this quarantine, man. But, that's one thing that we try to really just how to close out. If you're off the ball, what are you doing? In transition defense, what are we doing? We try to always keep the ball to the side on one side and not really allow ball reversals. But the biggest thing is and it's hard because kids don't have cell phones out there, is just communicating nowadays. I mean, it's just, if you don't communicate, offenses are really good, coaches are really good, and players are really good in Minnesota, and they're going to make you pay for it if you don't communicate and if you're not ready to play.
You talked about Reed, my boy, Princeton guy, Jared Bergeron's going to reach out. He's going to try to do some in-home stuff with us. I know they're with their Catalyst training, they're doing some stuff. I'm definitely have to reach out to Jared after this big. I want to see some closeouts, maybe make a 15-second TikTok for our guys closing out. But Bryce, thanks for coming on, man. Like I said, we go back back a ways, and it's been really cool to see your success you've had at various programs, and run into you at Concordia St. Paul at the state tournament was really cool experience, and keep it up, man. Like, I'm stealing a lot of the stuff that you do, so keep pumping it out on social media so I can put it into my program.
Hey, man, appreciate it, and the success you've had up there, and last year, obviously, making it for the first time in a long, long time, being Coach of the Year is well-deserved, and, you know, shoot, it's small town Brainerd Lakes guys trying to make an impact, and we both had great, and that's, you know, I'm glad from a small town. I'm in one of the bigger high schools now, but I'm really glad that we grew up where we grew up, because I think there's a lot of things that you don't get sometimes down here growing up that we did up there. So congrats, man. I'm looking forward to it. Appreciate you having me on. This podcast is great. And these are things that people need in this time. So.
All right, man. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.